Well, good morning. It's good to be with you. We always look forward to coming to the fair. Typically, though, in the years past, the last several years, we've had the fun of watching the kids come home covered with red dust and dirt after digging in the sand piles. And today we are going to get a little bit of muddy together. But that's one of the great things about the Neshoba County Fair. It's an opportunity to get together with family and friends, neighbors from across the state that we haven't seen since this time last year, to catch up on each other's lives and all that is going on about across our great state, and to hear from those others that I get the privilege to serve along with in state government, to find out a little bit more exactly what is going on across the state. For the last 18 plus months, it's been an honor serving as your 41st state auditor, where every day we have the privilege and opportunity to remind public employees, or remind elected officials, that their job is to be a public servant and not to be a self-serving individual. Our job is to hold them accountable and remind them that when it comes to doing our job as your public servants, our job is to check our political hats at the door. You see, accountability, your hard-earned taxpayer dollars, is not about Republican versus Democrat. It's not about the right versus left. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about right versus wrong. And when it comes to protecting your integrity and your reputation, your auditor's office is working diligently day in and day out to make sure the right thing is done by you, our boss, our employer, the taxpayers of the state of Mississippi. Since being sworn in office, we've recovered over $3 million of your taxpayer dollars that have been stolen, embezzled, or my personal favorite, misappropriated, and returned it to the local governments across the state of Mississippi. When I was sworn into office, I had no expectation that I would become the largest cigarette distributor in the state, but by working hand in hand with the ATF, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the State Tax Commission, we've been a part of the largest seizure of contraband cigarettes in the nation's history, with 2 warehouses seized here in Mississippi with over 855,900 cartons of illegal cigarettes seized. Individuals, organizations intentionally sought to defraud you, the taxpayers of the state of Mississippi. And ladies and gentlemen, if they think they can defraud you, the taxpayers of this great state, they've got another thing coming. We will hold them accountable. Now, in 2004, I got sworn into the Mississippi State Senate. And one of the first things we had to deal with was clean up the mess known as the Mississippi beef plant. When I was sworn in as your state auditor last year, we began once again cleaning up and continuing to clean up the Mississippi beef plant fiasco. Well, ladies and gentlemen, because of that, the legislature has taken action and taken steps, and your auditor's office is working hand in hand with Toyota and Nissan. We're working hand in hand with Viking Range and Northrop Grumman to make sure companies that are using your taxpayer dollars are holding up their end of the agreement. We're making sure that they are creating the jobs they promised us they would make, and making sure that you are never left holding the bag again. Last year alone, 33 Mississippi municipalities flaunted their authority and did not turn their audits in to the auditor's office as is required by state law. We knew that there was a problem. But this year, once we got down to the point where these municipalities were to turn in their audits, the number jumped from 33 to 77 cities not turning in their audits. That means the people of those municipalities did not know what was done with their tax money. They did not know the records. They had no transparency. But working hand in hand with the Mississippi Municipal League, with the House of Representatives and the Mississippi State Senate, we passed comprehensive legislation this year that allows the auditor's office, allows me as your state auditor, when a city does not turn their audit in, to go in, have a private CPA firm conduct that audit, and make sure that that city has to not only pay for it, but also pay some penalties and fines to go along with flaunting their responsibility. We will have accountable and transparent government in Mississippi, and it will be happen when we all check our political hats at the door, just as we did with these cities and this legislation this year. Now, one of the biggest issues facing Mississippi and facing our nation is not just the recession, but it's the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. Now, some of us refer to it as porculus, some of us refer to it as a stimulus, but the reality is we've got an untold amount of money coming into the states all across the country from the federal government, of our federal taxpayer dollars, that has strings attached to it, has accountability supposedly attached to it, and our reputation and our integrity is on the line. Mississippi is one of the 16 states chosen to be monitored by the federal government. Every other month, they will be looking over our shoulder, and we will be in the national spotlight. Now, following Hurricane Katrina, Mississippi received $24 billion in federal aid and federal money in one form or another. Under the leadership of Governor Haley Barbour and our local elected officials, we put into place the checks and balances necessary to make sure that we can hold our state accountable for that $24 billion. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a great success story in Mississippi is the fact that the federal government predicted we would have 10% fraud. The reality is now, looking back, we have less than 1% of fraud because our political leaders checked their political hats at the door and did what was right. Now we have $2.8 billion. Y'all get the difference, 24 versus 2.8? The difference is the $24 billion came through two agencies. We had a funnel for that money to come through that we could get our checks and balances in place. But now with stimulus money, $2.8 billion are coming like a 5-gallon bucket into a colander. 26 different federal agencies are dispersing the money to the states, going through 19 different state agencies who are awarding grants to local governments, school districts, counties, and municipalities. It makes an accountability nightmare. But what even makes it more complicated and more confusing is the federal government put hundreds of millions of dollars in the Federal Office of Inspector General, GAO, and OMB. And my favorite, the RAT Board. Is that not the most appropriate title for a federal agency? The Recovery, Accountability, and Transparency Board. But yet they made no allocation for state and local auditors, state and local accountability. But my job is to make sure that I'm not like other state auditors who have publicly said their job is to be the fire marshal. If you're not going to give us money, we'll come in after the barn is burned down and tell you where the fire started. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you didn't elect me to be your state auditor to watch the barn burn down. My job is to make sure our barn never catches fire in the first place. Very quickly to tell you what we're doing to prevent our financial house from burning down and the whole local government, state agencies accountable. Today we are releasing this report, and we've already made copies available to the press corps. We have other copies available here at the fair, and it will be on the website very shortly, where we have gone into all 16 state agencies receiving stimulus dollars. We've gone in and evaluated their internal controls. We've looked at their workflow capacity, but we've also, and most importantly, looked at their fraud detection and fraud prevention. Do they have the necessary structure in place to be accountable with the stimulus dollars? And we've got a comprehensive report that tells you where $2.3 billion of the money will be going, the jobs will be created, and what new programs and existing programs will be funded by those monies. We want to make sure we have transparency on the front end and not wait to play gotcha on the back end. The other things that we have going on August the 18th, we will start a statewide tour helping our local elected officials, our county supervisors, administrators, our school districts, boards of education and local superintendents of education, our mayors and city council, know what the rules are, what the guidelines are, what things they need to do to comply with state law when it comes to stimulus packages. We will make sure that we are protecting your reputation and that we're protecting your integrity as we continue to move forward over the next 14 months. I do want to thank the legislature, Governor Phil Bryant, Lieutenant Governor Phil Bryant, Speaker McCoy, and all the members of the House and Senate for passing legislation dealing with the stimulus package to make sure your state auditor's office has the authority, has the guidance and the clear authority to monitor these monies all the way through the state process. You know, as a young boy growing up in South Mississippi on our family's dairy farm in Jones County, my mother and father here with my wife and our 4 kids often told me, son, be sure that your sins will find you out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as your state auditor, I want to be very clear today. For any individual, any employee or elected official who is a steward of your taxpayer dollars or will be receiving stimulus dollars over the next 14 months, be sure that your sins will find you out. May God bless America, may God bless Mississippi, and may God bless the wet, damp Neshoba County Fair.